She was part of Electro. Paul Rothschild was my buddy, and he did the Pearl album, and we mixed it at Electro. One of Chris's first big paydays, man. Chris Sofferson, he wrote the whole thing. Like I said, it was one of his first big paydays. Yeah, we became buddies. He was in the Army, he was in the Army with Jimmy, with Janice, David. I gave David my office, Crosby, to listen to his mixes that were being done there.
Yeah.
You know, he loved my office, man. One of the main writers, one of the main members at Bread. Actually, I hung out with that band. The drummer in that band and me became really good buds.
Yeah.
At Electra. I mean, David was into a whole nother world, but was friendly enough.
Yeah.
But the drummer was
stand-up guy. Huh?
Yeah, he's a real stand-up dude, man. We had a lot of fun. They made a lot of money for the label. It was one of the few bands that we gave absolute freedom to out of the company. It's like we let David own everything and have free reign as long as he made records for us. Good songwriter, man. A lot of things people don't realize is that the other songwriter in the band besides David won an Oscar.
Which was?
I can't remember it, but...
Oh, his name?
Yeah, but he won an Oscar.
For songwriting?
Yeah, under a different name.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was like one of those under-the-table kind of things that turned out to be over and above what anybody expected. Wow. We had Iggy. We had MC5. Same kind of punk band out of Detroit. We had the Cars. We had them, and much later on, we had Anthrax, hard metal band. The kicker is, that would be the second band that Electro signed named Anthrax. That was our band. And Jack wanted us to change the name so bad, we call ourselves formally Anthrax. That was us. That's when we named our band Anthrax. It's called hoof and mouth disease.
Right.
Correct? He goes, yeah, it's a terrible disease.
Right.
I'm going, but Jack, on our songs, there's no lyrics and you can't dance to it. So there you go, hoof and mouth. I admired Harrison because as a rhythm guitar player,
right,
but as a lead player, he was like lacking on a lot of stuff.
Wow.
Whereas in the end, the Wilburys turned out to be the perfect band for him.
Oh yeah, with Roy Orbison and the guy from ELO and
the perfect band for him. He had Petty on bass.
It touches your heart and your soul.
Which is the mark of a great song.
It's the mark of a great song. It's what people come back for. That emotion that made them feel that, you know?
Another thing I always admired about Harrison was that he admitted his own weaknesses and always drug Eric in to cover for him.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Eric Clapton?
Yeah.
George Harrison was actually a really good guitar player.
Yeah.
I've listened to some of his stuff. And I'm like,
hours.
wow, I'm impressed.
I spent hours with George Harrison.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just hanging out and playing guitar?
No. Business.
Business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ability to use it as mono.
Okay.
Made it mono.
Okay. So, and Jack was, again?
the designer and owner of Redwood Audio Manufacturing.
Okay, cool.
Jack is a real mover shaker in the Sonoma music scene.
In the Sonoma music scene?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's like Jack put the mono thing in there knowing that anyone using it for an instrument, like me playing bass,
Right.
would crank it to mono to go through a mono amp, big power. Yeah, and if I can remember it, I'll text Jack and ask him, hey,
Okay.
Jack, how'd the mono fucking thing work anyway?
Right.
The thing that cracks me up is it's like a whole rack full of 12 AX7s.
Yeah. Oh, that's what's inside?
Yeah. I mean, it's like my Magnatone amp has all groove tubes in it that Aspen sent me. You know, it's like, yeah. Aspen asked me to join his company when he first started. I mean, Lori can tell you, you know, the story. Me and her out at Aspen's place in his hot tub going over the offer.
Yeah.
You know, and Clayton was already born by then, and it was like Lori just said, you know, I'm not raising my kid down here. I was raised down here, and I don't want my child raised down here.
I don't blame him.
And so I told Aspen offered me a piece of the company for sweat equity, no money.
Right.
And one of those things where you know it's going to be successful.
Right.
You just know it. There's no question about it.
I get it.
Happening.
Yeah.
And I, you know, the next day, I mean, we spent the night with him, hanging out. Aspen and I are old friends from the original Guitar Center at Sunset and Gardner. And I'm his hero, you know. But I'm his hero because, you know, I got brought in when Wayne Mitchell opened it up there. And he hired me on a 90-day contract, guaranteed salary, to train that staff. I wasn't the manager of the first Guitar Center,
but you were.
But I trained
everybody.
Yeah, and you know, and Aspen was one of that crew.
Yeah,
and we became, you know, fast friends because he recognized me for what I was, and I recognized him for what he's going to be.
Right.
And, you know, it's like how I wound up on my second stint through Guitar Center was coming back from Hawaii and Clayton getting born and me looking at Two-Tone and going, you know, Tommy, I know this is going to be a success.
Right.
I know that you're going to have a hit record. All you got to do is what I told you, man. Telephones or drum solos will get you a hit record.
Right.
But I fucked up on my first marriage with the kid. I'm not fucking this one up.
Right.
And Aspen threw a party so that Paul, who was running Guitar Center at that time, could come up and meet me. And we cut a deal at Aspen's. I would come back to Guitar Center because, you know, I told Paul, I go, man, are you kidding me? This is a fucking young man's game out there on the floor. I'm not going to go out there to this old man.
Right.
You know, are you kidding me? Nobody's going to fucking listen to me. They only listen to people their age. And Paul goes, Jamie, I'm getting fucked money-wise. I know I am. I'm losing sales. I know I am. And here's what I'll give you to come to work just to take up the slack on the floor.
Right.
And long story short, the numbers that we were talking about became astronomical once I got out on the floor with the ups that these guys were passing.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was stunned at They're just blowing people off with, pockets full of money.
Right.
And they didn't know how to ask for that money. And I did. And so my hundreds of dollars a week guarantee became many $100s a week from commission.
From commission? Exactly.
And an example is the guy from Chicago. Their guy walks in one day. Nobody had any idea who he was. I started talking to him. I'm from the Chicago area. We're talking about back home, blah, blah, blah. And then he told me what he needed. And I just went, no problem.
That's it.
So we fitted out the whole Chicago band with anvil cases.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is why I have that anvil case. They gave him, at that point, the guy that started a guitar company, I can't remember his name, but famous guitar company now, was the mover shaker at Anvil, and that was the prize. If you sold so much anvil cases, they'd give you a briefcase. And in one fell swoop, got my brief. Plus I got a nice payday at the. Oh yeah, no problem with that.
Go ahead and get your mail.
It's like one day, Wayne came into Guitar Center and saw me there, and he goes, "What the fuck are you doing here?"
Yeah.
I'm going, Wayne, I got married, blah, blah, blah. And he said, "You still want a store? I'll give you a store anywhere you want."
Fort Bragg.
And I told him, I said, "You got an opening in Mendocino County?" He goes, "No." And I go, "Well, that's where I want, Wayne."
Now they probably would. I mean, there's one in Santa Rosa, right?
It's like, right now, it's like, I'm happy. The same way with Electra. It was just, like, I'm headed back north. I loved it down here. You guys were great to me. Jack, I'll always appreciate what you did for me.
Right.
But I'm done with LA, man. If all there is going to be glam rock, I'll give you Sylvester out of San Francisco, but I'm only interested in music. I wanted a small jazz label. That's why I came here. I didn't want to get involved in this rock and roll madness, but that's what it became.
Oh my goodness.
And Preamp has an interesting story. I mean, the style itself, not that particular preamp. Rick put that together, and they brought that to, I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was the NAMM show in New Orleans or in Los Angeles, but they showed up with the prototype.
Yeah.
And from Olympic, and shows it to all the salesmen, because we were all working for Paul Rothschild at that time.
Okay.
And he laid it out. He goes, "What I got here is a stereo tube preamp." And I'm looking at it, and long story short, I looked at Susan and Rick and I went, "I can sell your whole production in a year by myself. How many of these can you make?"
Yeah.
And he goes, 12.
12 in a year?
Yeah. I'm going, I can sell that whole production at one store.
Right.
Because I had Southern California as my territory with the Rothschild music. And everyone's going, "Oh, you can't, blah, 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 plop, too new, blah, nodal, blah, 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 blah." I went into Guitar Center and looked at Paul and goes, "Look at this. What do you think?" And he goes, "I'll take every one they can make."
There you go.
And then went over to Nadine's.
Yeah.
Same thing. "I'll take every one they can make."
Oh my goodness.
And I went back to Paul and goes, "Paul, I can sell the whole year's production in one or two stores." And he goes, I can't do that. I mean, the rest of the salesmen, they have to have some too. And I'm going, Paul, this is a hot product, man. Can you imagine a stereo tube preamp that all these loud ass motherfuckers can like buy amp?
That's
like
crazy.
Right now.
Yeah.
You know, oh yeah. And I did. I asked Paul how many he wanted. He goes 24. I went over to the Danes. How many you want? He goes 24. I went back, laid the orders out. I got an order for 48. How many can you make? And it was like all the other salesmen. I goes, it's like one guy had New York, and he had the same thing at Manny's in New York. When he went in, and the salesman at Manny goes, 24. And he comes back with, I need 24. I go, well, Jamie's already put in an order for 48. And that just destroyed Rick at Olympic. It was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
You got orders. I was just looking for the next great act.
You went down to see Hart. And
yeah.
That's an amazing story.
That was my reaction. And when I came back with them was, 2 females in a band? Are you kidding? That's not going to happen. Well, everybody does. Right. When I first saw the 2 of those girls, they were slim and fucking beautiful. He brought him to tears. No, and that was all by accident. I mean, it's just, I was up in Seattle to get out of L.A. I wasn't looking for anything.
Right.
And I had someone recommend, you ought to go see this band called Heart. I'm going, what's it about? It's like, well, it's a couple of female lead singers and a psychedelic guitar player.
Oh yeah, what a great guitar.
I'm going, man, I got to go see that. And it was just what they said. A couple of outrageously good female singers and an outrageously good psychedelic guitar player. As soon as I got turned down, I called my friend Michael Jackson. Not the Michael. Michael Jackson is the guy that I worked with at Electra in the A&R department for a while, A&M. So I called up Michael at A&M and I'm going, Michael, I just got turned down on this band. You've got to hear them. You won't believe it. You won't believe 2 female lead rock and roll band that'll rock your socks off. And he went and heard them, and it took they signed them, and it took a couple of years for them to get that album out, but they got it out. And I was long gone when they came out with that album, and I'm just sitting there listening to it going,
oh man,
nice job, guys. I wish I could have hung around and did that myself. My favorite's the Doobies. I came back after listened to them and walked into Russ's office and went, they keep telling me, find a band you want to produce. I went, Russ, I found a band up in San Jose I want to produce. And he goes, what's their name? I go, the Doobie Brothers. He goes, Jamie, we can't sign this. I go, why not? He goes, we're trying to escape our drug image. You're kidding me. We can't sign them. So I called up my friend over in Warner's and went, hey buddy, you gotta go hear this band. They're gonna make a lot of records that are really fucking good. And they did. That's one of the reasons that Mo sent his son over to me to learn how to do the record stuff. The producing, the A&Ring, the finding stuff out.
Yeah.
It's like, he sent Randy over. And Randy was just in love with me, man. I took him everywhere, showed him everything. One of the reasons that, I was given the audio visual department at Warner Brothers. I took care of Mo's kid, care of Jack's kid. They liked me.
Yeah.
And
You took me in as a family, you know.
and then I met Lori. And after that, it was like, you know what? I can't stay down here
Right.
hanging out with a girl that you guys think of only as somebody from the valley.
Right. This was your soulmate.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm out of here.
You did the right thing, Jamie. Look, you got Clayton, you got Roxanne,
Yeah.
you got Lori.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that you were hanging out with Brian Wilson back in the surf
Yeah.
days.
My favorite thing with Brian was standing up on a table in the Troubadour with him preaching. This is the guy we're running for senator right up here. This is the guy. Brian was crazy, man. But, I mean, even in his craziness, I knew he was a genius, and he knew he was a genius. Even back then, when the Beatles were cranking out these lyrics and melodies that I'm attributing most of the melody stuff to McCartney, and you know, some of the lyrics to McCartney, some of the lyrics to
John.
Lennon, but the actual song parts, McCartney did most of them.
Oh, he did Yesterday?
Yeah, but over here in America, I'm listening to Brian, and Brian's taking these stupid fucking lyrics and turning them in, you know, turning the music part of them into anything that the Beatles were doing. Joe Burger, baby. Double cheese and a chili on an egg. That'd be a Kaiser burger. Reggae is really simple if you realize that the beat comes in three places: on, off, and before. And reggae is all, the reggae bass is all played on the off. So when the drum hits the on, it goes on the off with his riff.
Earth, Wind and Fire. What a great band.
Great band. When it was funny when Johnny Graham walked into GC one day when I was there and handed me 2 tickets to their show, the guitar player, Earth, Wind and Fire, white Les Paul. So when I took Lori to that show, she was just over the hill. It's the best show she's ever seen.
I don't know. I still love your story about Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck. That's
a true story.
It's amazing. I know it is. How did you feel to have to tell them no? That's what is so comical to me.
Great.
You're like, no Jimmy, no Jeff, you can't get on stage.
Fucking great. You Brits can't get on the stage with you. Fucking loved it.
Talk about a power trip, an ego thing.
That would be me. That was preceded with my look at Jimmy going, God, Jimmy, you've had a lot of weight, man.
No,
and with Jeff, I was kind of sad because I really liked him. I thought he would have did a really good job with Lonnie, except Lonnie don't want no Brits on stage with him. The only time that he allowed a Brit on stage with him was in New York City, and it was the 2 guitar players from the Rolling Stones, the new guy.
Okay.
The old guy would have been a great him and Lonnie would have loved trading left. So I've always liked the song Concrete Jungle. but I could never come to grips with one of the guys in that band playing the solo. So one day, in the van between Indianapolis and a gig in Cleveland, I was driving and chatting with Wayne, and I told him, says, you know, I don't think it's being particularly racist, but to me on that song, it just doesn't sound like a black guy is playing it. Even more so, it doesn't sound like one of the Jamaicans in that band is playing it. And Wayne started chuckling, and he looks at me and goes, Jamie, I'm playing that solo. And I just fell down. Then it made sense to me, and then he told me the story of he was in the lower studio and Marley was in the upper studio in England cutting different records. And Chris, the owner of Island, came down and asked Wayne to come up and put an overdub on a song. And it was Concrete Jungle and a couple more on that first Marley album. And Wayne and Bob Marley became great friends over that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was never a black guy, white guy deal ever with them. Well, with good musicians, it never is. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's we're all human beings. That drives me nuts.
One of the things I loved about music is whoever's the best player is the one on the bandstand. End of story.
You know, I remember you telling me about the Soul Stirrers and how you told them you could only be their manager for 1 year.
Yeah, I meant it. I really did enjoy working with those guys for that year. They were great. Great freaking singers. Great harmony. It was such a pleasure just to sit there and listen to them sing. I felt like I was blessed.
Yeah.
Truly blessed just to be able to sit there and listen to them. Yeah, man, I was all really set up for Warner Brothers. The guy that ran Warner Brothers, Joe Smith, sent his boy over to my office at Elektra and told him to watch this guy. This is how it works. And I had to deal with Randy for 3 months to teach him how to run the record business.
Yeah.
Because Mo Austin was the boss then. And Mo fully expected me to educate his boy. And if I would, between Jack and Mo, my life was set at Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And Randy had a great time with me, man. I'd let him get high in my office. Did all the right stuff. Took him out with me when I hit the road to look at bands.
Yeah.
Showed him the Jamie Weber School of A&R. The Jamie Weber School of Repertoire. Go to any town. Go to the local music store. Ask the guys on the floor who the hottest bands are. Go see the hottest bands. Leave. And never let them know you were there. You don't raise any false expectations. You don't make yourself look stupid. But you do get to see the best talent in each town. You know, and it's like other A&R guys, Columbia, RCA, they would rent caddies, and I rented Mustangs. I mean, I rented Volkswagens. You have no idea who I am, but I got to see the best talent in each town.
Yeah.
And it's a given that the floor salesman and the music store in town knows who they are, knows exactly who they are, because he deals with them literally every day. As a kid in Truman, Arkansas, I was white trash, man. The real deal white trash. I lived in a 4-room tar paper shack. Our street was a street in town, but it was gravel.
Right.
There was no sidewalks, and the stream ran, the runoff ran down right in front of the house in a ditch, and everybody was barefoot.
Right, that was like my father when he grew up. They were lucky to have shoes in the middle of Texas,
We had no plumbing. Did have electricity. That was interesting. It was the only modern convenience that we had there. But the real deal is, for me, was I didn't know I had it bad. Around me had it bad too, so I didn't know I had it bad. Except
I get it.
When I went to school, I had to try harder than the rest of the white kids, which gave me a real appreciation for, even though I could never say, yeah, I understand, but it gave me a real appreciation for women, black people, gay people.
But I get it.
The marginalized pieces of society I got a real appreciation for that, being a marginalized piece of society, but I still honestly believe that if you're born in America, you're white, and you're male, you have no reason to bitch.
Right.
If you're whining about how bad it is, fuck you. You're free, you're white, you're in America. You cannot beat that.
Yeah, that's like born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
Yeah. Ronnie and I had a really good band going.
Yeah, which is, what was the name of the band?
The Bushmen.
The Bushmen.
San Diego.
I think I've heard you talk about that. Right, this is the early 60s, right?
Yeah.
I was just an apple in my dad's eye.
Yeah, so much that the younger rock guys came after me and Ronnie.
Yeah.
Actually, my friend was the bass player from Moby Grape. He was from San Diego. He came back to visit his parents. Came into the store one day. Jamie, man, you gotta fucking get up there. You won't believe the amount of different musicians. You're so fucking good, man. They would grab you in a heartbeat, and you could pick your band. Man, I'm not leaving here. I got this wife thing going, and I'm kind of like locked down. I mean, that shit was finally the end of my marriage with Judy. I couldn't take one more band making it without me. I just couldn't take it anymore. And I was so pissed off that I went up to San Francisco, locked on to this two-piece instrumental duo that had absolutely no hope of ever getting a record deal, and decided that would be it for me. I would do this and make sure they got a record deal. It did. I was so angry about having missed the boat, missed the train.
Yeah.
All over a woman.
That's that age-old story, my friend.
Yeah, it's oft-told tale.
Oh, yeah.
Not me. It's a tale that I can guarantee you there's musicians in Kansas, Oklahoma,
Everywhere.
Illinois, pick your state, that are better than anyone else that came out of that state that didn't, because they got married.
They got married. End of story.
Yeah.
Hence, one reason I chose never to get married.
Lonnie and my favorite was this guitar player in Milwaukee that was so ridiculously good. That would be, be making CDs, and Lonnie would get on his ass going, well, you want to get out of here? And the answer was always no. But, okay.
So, how did you get involved with Elektra Records? I mean, how did you get the job?
I got the job because Jack signed my instrumental duo that was impossible to sign.
The one you were just talking about.
Yeah, but the caveat was from Jack was, if this doesn't work out, you come to work for me. And it didn't, and I did. And he didn't know what to do with me, so I worked. In the beginning, I worked every department at Elektra Records. We figured out that A&R was where I should be, so that's where he put me. Hell, I even ran a nightclub for Elektra. Corb Donahue and I ran this nightclub that I had suggested that I told him that I think this is really stupid to depend on Elmer over the whiskey to showcase our bands. We should just put together a club of our own and showcase it. And it became the Roxy. Yeah. It started out as the Bitter End West on Santa Monica. And by the time that David came over to Elektra, it morphed into the Roxy.
Wow.
I stood in the Troubadour one time with Brian Wilson, and we were both so fucked up out in the bar that we didn't give a fuck who was playing on the stage or the bar. And Brian made me get up on a table and give a speech that Brian wanted to run me for governor.
Janie Weber for governor. That's like Al Bundy for president.
Exactly. Exactly. Brian was cool. Brian and I had while he was in good enough shape to hang out at the Troubadour, we enjoyed each other's company because we're both from the original surf days.
What a great songwriter.
Yeah. Fucking genius, man. You know, that bird's bandied around a lot, but him and Paul McCartney are on the same page. Oh, Chicago is not a bad choice. Chicago Transit Authority. Cool. That's the original name. And we had this kind of festival thing in the Tijuana Bull Ring. And I saw them there. And I thought, you know what? These guys are going to be pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because, you know, I was from that area. I went to Dundee High School. And I left Chicago as a well-polished musician, but more of a blues-orientated from spending so much time with Shaky Jake on the South Side learning to play bass.
Yeah.
Because I already knew how to play trumpet, but I had no idea how to play bass. And I was real pleased. I'm going, wow. I'm glad there's more shit than me coming out of Chicago. How cool is that? So when I lived in San Diego, Ronnie Bushy.
Who's Ronnie Bushy?
The drummer for the Iron Butterfly.
Okay.
And I had a band, and Paul Sykes was our lead singer.
And Paul Sykes is?
Gay.
Huh?
Was gay.
Oh, okay.
And we had a gig at, I think, the only gay bar in town down in Mission Beach. And so when I got married, Judy and I had our wedding reception in the bar. And it was a celebration because we had just did something that the gay community wasn't allowed to do at all. So what Judy and I did was asked all the gay people to, because it was a drag queen thing, we asked them to get into their very best drags outfits and come to our wedding reception. And it was fabulous, man. The drag community in San Diego was like so underground, and this would be like 1962 or 3.
Yeah.
It was so fucking underground that you didn't even know it was there.
Right, but this opened up the door for them.
Oh, these people were so happy, and it was such a wonderful thing for me and Judy and the band. I mean, my band played my wedding reception.
That's cool.
That the absolute joy that these queens got to express, that some of it spilled out into the street, and some of them stayed dressed to go home, but some of them got undressed in the club before they went out.
Yeah.
To go home because they figured they'd get beat up or hurt.
This is in the early 60s, yeah.
San Diego was like a stone Navy town, but it still is. I'm sure it is. I'm sure the Navy has a huge impact on San Diego still. But I mean, this was San Diego when the tallest building in town was the Aztec Hotel. Up on the hill. This is...
Yeah. It's a cool story.
And like 5th Avenue, which San Diego, now I hear from reading, it's like all upscale and shit, but back when I lived in San Diego and worked at Apex, 5th Avenue was full of pawn shops, and it was not the best section of town. But that was like one of the real joys of my life, that I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the gay community, because it's like the gay and the black community. Well, that's how I felt like as a kid in Truman, Arkansas, I was white trash, man. The real deal white trash. I lived in a 4-room tar paper shack, and our street was a street in town, but it was gravel. There were no sidewalks, and the stream ran, the runoff ran down right in front of the house in a ditch, and everybody was barefoot. We had no plumbing. Did have electricity. That was interesting. It was the only modern convenience that we had there. But the real deal for me was, I didn't know I had it bad. So I didn't know I had it bad. When I went to school, I had to try harder than the rest of the white kids, which gave me a real appreciation for, even though I could never say, yeah, I understand, but it gave me a real appreciation for women, black people, gay people, marginalized pieces of society. I got a real appreciation for that, being a marginalized piece of society, but I